Pack your things, Seraphine. I'm a rich man now. I don't need you anymore. That was the first sentence my husband said to me the morning he heard about his grandfather's inheritance. No warning. No hesitation. Just a cold announcement like I was a piece of furniture he'd finally outgrown. Before I could even understand what was happening, Dorian shoved my suitcase into my hands, pushed me out the door, and filed for divorce within hours. And I signed the papers quietly, my heart breaking so loudly I was sure the whole world could hear it. But here's the part he never saw coming. The moment the lawyer read the will, Dorian fell to his knees in front of me, begging for the same woman he had thrown away. They say betrayal always comes before revelation. I didn't believe that. Not until the day my world collapsed so that the truth could finally rise. People often assume that the moment a marriage ends is the moment the pain begins. But mine had been dying long before the divorce papers ever touched my hands. I was 32, yet most days I felt twice that age. Working 2 jobs, one at the clinic during the day, another balancing books late into the night, just to keep a roof over our heads. Or maybe, just to keep the illusion of a marriage alive. Dorian Vance, my husband, used to have dreams so loud they filled every room we lived in. But they were the kind of dreams that never woke up. He'd bounce from one business venture to the next. An online shop, a consulting idea, a tech repair service. Always chasing success, never catching it. And when the money ran out, when the plans collapsed again, his frustration turned toward me, because I was the only thing within reach. He'd look at me with that tired, disappointed stare. You should really try harder with your appearance, Seraphine. A man can't walk around with a woman who's, well, this plain. Those words carved small wounds inside me, the kind that don't bleed, but slowly drain the light from a woman's heart. Outside, our apartment looked like a home. Inside, it felt like a cold room where 2 strangers waited for different tomorrows. He slept late, wandered the house irritated, while I moved around quietly, as if tiptoeing through a life that no longer welcomed me. Some nights, I would sit alone at the kitchen table after finishing my second job, my fingers numb, my eyes burning, wondering how a marriage could feel so crowded yet so lonely at the same time. The air between us had turned into something heavy, a silence that pressed against my chest like a stone. I kept hoping it was just a phase, just a season, just fatigue. But deep down, I knew the truth. The man I loved had already walked away long before he ever pushed me out the door. The shift came on a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind of evening where the world feels strangely still, as if holding its breath before something breaks. Dorian was sitting on the couch, scrolling his phone the way he always did. Then it rang, a number he didn't recognize. He answered lazily at first, but his posture changed the moment he heard the voice on the other end. When he hung up, he didn't look devastated. He didn't look shaken. He looked excited. My grandfather, Eldrick, he passed away, he said. But the words didn't carry grief. No tremble. No softness. Just a thin layer of forced sadness covering something darker. A spark of greed lighting up behind his eyes. For a moment, I just stood there with the knife still in my hand, chopping vegetables for a dinner I suddenly lost appetite for. I'm sorry, Dorian, I whispered. But he wasn't listening to condolences. He was already pacing the living room, rubbing his hands together like a man staring at a door full of gold. They're reading the will, he said. This week. He had a downtown apartment, a lake house, stocks. I know I'm getting something big. And finally my life can start. His life. Those were his exact words. Not our life. Not once. He spoke about new homes, cars he'd buy, the office he'd open, the lifestyle he deserved. Then, almost as an afterthought, he looked at me with an appraising stare that felt colder than winter air. You know, when money comes in, people start expecting a certain image. A wife who looks the part. Someone who fits the status. The way he said wife made me feel less like a partner, and more like a piece of furniture he wasn't sure matched the decor anymore. That night, while he dreamed of wealth and future glory, I lay awake listening to the hum of our radiator. A soft, broken sound. wondering if it was echoing the same truth in my chest. Something was shifting, quiet but unmistakable. And whether I admitted it or not, I knew the storm was coming. The change happened faster than I expected, as if the scent of money had turned Dorian into someone I no longer recognized, or maybe someone he had always been beneath the surface. 2 days before the will reading, he came home with a strange excitement vibrating under his skin, a manic energy that made the air in the room feel uneasy. He didn't sit down. He didn't breathe. He just stood in the doorway, staring at me with a smile that didn't belong to a husband. "Seraphine," he said, in a voice so calm it felt rehearsed, "we're done." I blinked, waiting for the rest of the sentence, thinking I'd misheard him. But then he tossed a manila envelope onto the table. Divorce papers. Already filled out, already signed on his side. "I don't need you dragging me down anymore," he continued. "I'm going to be wealthy, and I need a woman who fits that future. Not someone plain, exhausted, and," he waved his hand at me as if brushing off dust, "someone so painfully average." The words didn't just cut. They hollowed something out inside me. Before I could respond, he grabbed my suitcase, the old one with the broken zipper, stuffed clothes into it without caring what he wrinkled, and shoved it into my arms. "You'll be fine," he said coldly. "You always land on your feet. But me? I have a new life to build." End quote. Coming out to sitting, in quoted inide in weird and hard. I felt my throat tighten, but no tears came. Just a stillness, a numb quiet, like my heart had stepped out of my body to watch this scene from afar. "I'll sign," I whispered. And I did. Every page, every line. Hands steady, even though my world wasn't. Then I walked out of the home I had worked 2 jobs to maintain, carrying nothing but 2 bags and the fading echo of a love that had died long ago. Maya opened her door before I could knock twice. She took one look at my face. No makeup, no expression, just a woman emptied out, and pulled me into her arms without asking a single question. That night, in her small, spare room with soft yellow walls, I finally let myself breathe. Not cry. Not yet. Just breathe. As if I was learning how to inhabit my own body for the first time in years. I didn't know it then. But walking away from Dorian's house was the first step toward walking back into my own life. 3 nights after Dorian threw me out, I was sitting at Maya's kitchen table, holding a cup of lukewarm tea I hadn't touched. I was trying to figure out what life looked like now, what I looked like without the weight of a failing marriage on my shoulders. Then my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Seraphine Vance. The voice on the other end was steady, professional, the kind that makes your spine straighten instinctively. "This is Thaddeus Sterling, attorney for the late Eldrick Vance. I need you present at the reading of his will. There is a particular clause that concerns you." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "Me? But Yes," he cut in gently. "It is essential that you attend." Essential. The word lingered even after the call ended, as if the universe had just shifted a single tile beneath my feet. The next morning, Maya insisted on driving me. When we arrived at the attorney's office, an old brick building that smelled like oak and history, Dorian was already there. He turned when I walked in, not with remorse, not with shame, but with irritation, as if I were the one intruding on his big moment. His suit was too sharp for his slouched posture, his confidence too brittle for the nervous tapping of his foot. He was trying to look wealthy already, as if money could sense ambition and hurry toward him. I sat across the room, feeling the tension like a thin thread pulled taut between us. And then the door opened. Thaddeus Sterling entered with a folder that looked far too ordinary to hold the weight of what was about to happen. Thaddeus cleared his throat and began reading the will. Dorian leaned forward, practically glowing. This was the moment he had built his new life around. The moment he thought would prove he was right to throw me away. But then the lawyer paused, flipped to a marked page, and looked directly at me. In accordance with Eldrick Vance's final wishes, he read slowly, "All assets valued at approximately $2.3 million shall be inherited by his grandson, Dorian Vance, only under one condition: that he remains legally married to Seraphine Vance for a minimum of 1 year following Eldrick's passing. Dorian's smile froze. Thaddeus continued, his voice firm. Should the marriage end before that period, by divorce, abandonment, or any legal dissolution, all assets shall instead be transferred to Seraphine Vance, the only individual in this family who has consistently shown compassion, loyalty, and moral integrity. Silence. A silence so heavy it felt like the room itself stopped breathing. I watched Dorian's face collapse, from confidence to confusion to disbelief, and finally to fear. His lips parted, but no sound came out. His hands trembled, the same hands that had shoved my suitcase into my arms, the same hands that had thrown me away like a burden. And just like that, with a single sentence spoken from beyond the grave, the entire fortune slipped out of his grasp and fell quietly into mine. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply sat there, a woman who had been discarded, now holding everything he thought defined him. Destiny doesn't shout. Sometimes it whispers. And in that room, destiny whispered directly into Dorian's undoing. For a long moment after the will was read, Dorian just sat there, frozen, pale, unraveling in front of everyone. Then something inside him snapped. He pushed back his chair with a frantic scrape, hurried across the room, and dropped to his knees in front of me. The same man who had once kicked me out of our home as if I were nothing, now kneeling, trembling, desperate. "Seraphine, listen, please," he stammered. We can fix this. We can call off the divorce. We can start over. I'll be better. I promise. Just give me a chance. We'll split the inheritance, 50-50, no more if you want." His hands reached for mine, shaking like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. I looked down at him, really looked, and realized something I should have known long ago. A man can lose everything and still learn nothing. "Seraphine," he whispered again, voice cracking, "I need you." But he didn't. Not me. Not my heart. Not the woman he ignored, belittled, and discarded. He needed the money, the status, the future he thought he deserved. Slowly, gently, I pulled my hands back. "Dorian," I said, my voice calm in a way that surprised even me, "you're not afraid of losing me." He looked up, confused, hopeful, hollow. "You're afraid," I continued, "of losing the money you thought would save you." Inespend. His expression broke. Not from heartbreak, but from the realization that his manipulation no longer worked on me. I stood up, and the distance between us, that final, quiet space, felt like stepping out of a shadow I'd lived under for years. "I'm done being the woman you overlook," I said softly. "And I'm done being the woman you come crawling back to only when life refuses to give you what you want." Tenta Jews. He stayed on his knees, whispering my name, but it sounded different now. Small, powerless, fading. For the first time in a long, long while, I walked away, without looking back. And in that single step, I realized I wasn't the one losing anything. I was the one finally reclaiming myself. 2 weeks after the will was read, I returned to Thaddeus Sterling's office, not as a woman begging for answers, but as the legal heir to everything Eldrick Vance had left behind. The papers were signed one by one. A downtown apartment with windows that caught the morning light. A quiet lake house that smelled of pine and old summers. Investment accounts, stocks, savings, assets I had never imagined touching in my lifetime. In total, more than $2.5 million rested quietly under my name. But here's the truth no one tells you. Money doesn't fix a broken heart. It simply gives you the space to heal it. So I walked away from every piece of the life I once shared with Dorian. The apartment we lived in, the routines that drained me, the silence that suffocated me. I didn't look back. For the first time in years, I chose myself. I enrolled in a French class, the language that always sounded like a promise of softer days. My tongue stumbled over the new words, but each attempt felt like reclaiming a part of myself I'd forgotten. I signed up for a painting workshop. My hands trembled as I held the brush, but the colors, oh, The colors knew exactly where they needed to go. It was as if my soul remembered how to speak, long before my voice did. I traveled to Italy alone. Florence, Rome, the Amalfi Coast. Walking those ancient streets, I felt something inside me wake up. A tenderness, a curiosity, a courage I thought I had lost forever. And when I returned, with a clearer mind and a steadier heart, I founded something I had once only dreamed of, the Seraphia Foundation, a small, quiet haven for women standing where I once stood. Lost, hurt, alone, yet still holding a spark of strength inside them. Helping them reminded me of this simple truth: pain may break us, but it never has to finish us. Life has a way of returning to us what we send into the world. Sometimes quietly, sometimes all at once. For Dorian, it came as a slow unraveling. After losing the inheritance, doors began closing on him one by one. Jobs he applied for slipped through his fingers. His business pitches, once overflowing with confidence, were met with polite refusals. The woman he had been seeing, the one he believed would elevate his new status, lost interest the moment she realized he had no fortune behind him. Her dismissal was sharp, cruel, almost poetic, and without money, without admiration, without the shell of superiority he used to wear, Dorian seemed to shrink into someone even he didn't recognize. His pride collapsed first, then his plans, and finally, his spirit. Weeks later, on a quiet afternoon, I stopped by a small cafe near the bookstore I loved, the kind of place filled with warm light and the soft hum of conversations. I had just opened a new novel when I heard my name, hesitant, shaky, disbelieving. Seraphine? I looked up. Dorian stood there, thinner, paler, his clothes wrinkled, the weight of his choices etched onto his face. He wasn't the man who kicked me out. He was the man life had finally caught up to. He tried to smile. There's so much I want to say. Maybe we could, but his voice cracked before he could finish. I simply offered him a gentle smile, not out of pity, but out of peace. Take care, Dorian, I said softly, and turned back to my book. The moment my eyes returned to the page, the conversation ended, not with anger, not with victory, just a quiet understanding that some stories aren't meant to continue. He walked out of the cafe with shoulders heavy, steps uncertain, a man learning how far a fall can be, when there is no one left to cushion it. I, on the other hand, felt lighter than I had in years. 2 lives drifting apart, one sinking, one soaring. One man falling into the consequences he created. One woman rising into the life she finally chose. When everything finally settled, when the noise faded, and the storm inside me calmed into a soft, steady breath, I realized something simple, something I should have known long ago. A man who leaves you for money never loved you in the first place. But someone like Eldrick, quiet, observant, watching from a distance, can see your worth long before you ever see it in yourself. I carry that truth with me now, not as a wound, but as a light, because pain doesn't come to destroy us. It comes to reveal us, to peel back everything that is not meant for us, so that what remains is real, pure, undeniably ours. Sisters, suffering isn't a punishment, it's a doorway, and when you walk through it, you don't come out smaller, you come out whole. I mauled it. If my story finds you in a dark chapter of your own life, I hope it places a small flame in your hands, a reminder that endings are not graves. They are gateways. Thank you for listening, for sharing a moment of your day with me, and for allowing my story to touch the quiet spaces of your heart. Until next time, this is Voices of Sister Seraphine, where every woman's pain is honored, and every woman's rise is celebrated. When I look back on everything, the love I once held so tightly, the betrayal that cracked it open, the long walk away from the life I thought I wanted, I realize now that none of it destroyed me. It reshaped me. It peeled away the layers of fear and doubt, until the woman I was meant to be could finally breathe again. I learned that sometimes, heartbreak isn't the end of the story. It's the doorway to your rebirth, a reminder that even the gentlest rain, after falling hard enough, can scrub the sky clean for a brighter sunrise. I used to think strength meant holding on, but now I know the truth. A woman is strongest when she finds the courage to let go of the love that no longer loves her back. Walking away wasn't easy. There were nights I sat with my pain like it was an old friend, mornings when my reflection still carried yesterday's bruises. But little by little, the world softened again. A quiet breeze through an open window. A warm cup of coffee in the early light. Small things, yet they felt like proof that life was gently returning. To anyone listening who is standing where I once stood, I want you to know this. Your worth is not measured by who chooses you, but by who you choose to become. Once you stop begging to be seen, forgive yourself for staying too long. Forgive yourself for hoping. And then choose your peace, even if it means choosing it alone. Let this be your reminder, your soft awakening. Nothing that is meant for you will ever require you to shrink to keep it. As you step forward, may you meet the kind of freedom that feels like fresh air after a long storm, and may your heart open again, slowly, tenderly, bravely, to the life waiting for you on the other side of letting go. If this story reached you in a quiet corner of your day, if it touched something you've been carrying in silence, I hope you'll subscribe, share, and help us spread these stories of truth and awakening. Because somewhere out there, another woman might be waiting for the very message that found you today.